Welcome. If you are an absolute beginner, I hope that you learned something from this. I am Asher Huey. I am the digital director at the American Federation of Teachers. It's a labor union of 1.7 million teachers and healthcare workers and public employees and higher ed professionals and school employees. And I'm based in Washington, D.C. I like questions as they come, so put your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them as they go. Because I cannot see the chat and I cannot see you, feel free to tell me if I end up out of frame. Feel free to tell me if I'm going too fast. If you try to use the People tab to send me a message directly, I will not see it. So make sure that you're asking your questions in the session chat tab.
I'll take care of that.
And, excuse me?
I'll take care of that. If people are asking questions, I can forward them over to you.
Great. And then the last piece is that if you see my presentation, you should see a picture of me sitting on Santa's lap right now. Does everyone see that? Yes, great. I'm not hearing anyone because I can't hear you. If you double click on that, it's going to make it larger so that you can see more of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this presentation, ask your questions as they come. I'll take them as they come in. And then afterwards, I'm going to open up Twitter and show you some interactive stuff. All right? So our agenda, learn Twitter, learn more Twitter, be gay and do crimes. So what is Twitter? Here are some examples of tweets. Twitter is technically microblogging. Here we've got the Chicago Teachers Union tweeting about charter school strikes because we represent charter schools in different places. So why tweet? A lot of reasons to tweet. You can be a leader, gives you the opportunity to sort of get your thoughts out there, to make news if you're with an organization. You can build relationships. It lets you hear what other people are saying, get feedback on conversations. The thing that I often say to our affiliates when I try to get them onto Twitter is that, you know, every politician and every reporter are on Twitter. They're having these sort of like elite conversations about the issues that we care about, in many cases about issues that directly impact you, your finances, your job, your well-being, your safety. They're having these conversations. So if we're not a part of it, then we're ceding the ground to people who would see everything that we're fighting for be lost. And so it's really important to, you know, tweet at reporters, to tweet at politicians, to tweet at whoever the influencers are. So some examples of tweets here. You can see my boss, Randy, tweeting about when Pete Buttigieg put out a labor plan showing some, yay, somebody's putting out a labor plan. Emojis you can use, hashtags. I'm going to talk about all of these in a second. Here's an example of her quote tweeting an organization, mentioning Betsy DeVos. We're also sharing press releases from affiliates, what they're working on, what they're doing. So when you log into Twitter, and this is Twitter on the desktop, it also exists on the phone. It looks slightly different, but ultimately the same concepts, functionally pretty similar. When you log in, the first thing that you see is basically, and I'm assuming I'm going to use some Facebook terminology here because most people are more familiar with Facebook. You see your newsfeed, right? When you log into Twitter, when you go on, you see all of the people who you follow and what they're saying. You're also seeing what they're retweeting, and you're seeing some ads just like you see ads in the Facebook newsfeed. You can see if you scroll down, you see more. I follow Joan McCarter from Daily Kos. I follow this guy, Rob, who I believe is a teacher from the Twin Cities. I follow Now This. I follow Color Lines. I follow Sierra Club. And this is where I'm seeing everything that they're sharing. I'm not seeing it in real time, just like Facebook has an algorithm, Twitter has an algorithm. It shows you the content that you're most likely to interact with. So how do I interact with a tweet? You can like reply, and retweet. Exactly the same way that you do on Facebook. On Facebook, you like, comment, and share. On Twitter, you like, which is a like, you reply, which is a comment, or you retweet, which is a share. You can also mute, block, or report if you don't like what people are saying. Does this all make sense? Am I moving through it too fast? I'm getting no feedback because we're online, and I'm used to people like shouting questions at me.
People have been good. I know Constance has a question about cool Twitter handles, but I figure you'll probably get into that part.
I've got a section on Twitter handles, yeah, and we can talk about cool Twitter handles.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
So you can see here's a tweet. This was from last year, actually, almost a year ago, of this person, Jennifer Wright, who I actually don't follow. You can see if you want to follow someone, you hit that follow button. I don't follow her. Must have been retweeted or something. And you can see I can reply, which is like the comment. I can retweet, which is that little symbol down there, or I can like it. And it's as simple as that. They're underneath each tweet, and you can do whatever type of interaction that you want with the tweets. So how do you tweet? You have 280 characters, right? So it's short. It's better to be shorter than to use the whole thing, but you can say up to 280 characters. You can retweet and quote tweet, and I've got slides on that. If you have a tweet that you like, you can pin it to the top of your profile. I think my pinned tweet is I was getting irritated because people were coming when I was saying something good about one candidate. People were like, yeah, but this candidate's better. I'm like, I'm not talking about that candidate right now. I'm trying to encourage people to be better on things. Replies, I'm going to talk about that. It's how you can like sort of comment to people. Now, remember that when you're tweeting publicly, when you're replying to someone, when you're retweeting someone, when you're tweeting, this is all public. Anybody who follows you can see it. Anybody who doesn't follow you, if your account is public, can see it. You can thread tweet, so you can reply to your own tweets and basically tell a story. I'm going to talk about hashtags, the importance of using hashtags. You can always share links to articles, pictures, memes, videos, animated GIFs, whatever you have, you can share it. Not PDFs. Don't tweet a PDF.
Somebody just asked here, and again, if you want to address this later, they said they're more well-versed on, this is Aaron, more well-versed on Facebook and Instagram, but it seems that in the last few weeks, Twitter is where they've gotten more national information, Facebook more for local communicating, and Instagram is more for distractions. I don't know how to use Twitter for more local outreach, and I'd like to expand my knowledge.
Okay, yeah. We'll definitely talk about that in hashtags, and I think some of that will be covered. But, you know, part of Twitter, your Twitter experience, you know, Facebook is based on friendships, right? You're going to add people that you actually know. And by and large, the people you actually know are in your community, right? So you're going to add your neighbors, you're going to add your coworkers, you're going to add your family and your friends. Yeah, you have friends who live in other places, the friends who moved away, but by and large, your Facebook network lives near you, is in your community, which is why the Facebook algorithm naturally shows you things that are happening in your community. Twitter isn't necessarily based on personal friendships. You follow reporters, you follow politicians, you follow all these people, and people, especially right now, are looking at national politics. So the key to it is figuring out who to follow and what hashtags to follow that give you the information that you want about something local. And so I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when I get to hashtags. And if I don't get to it, remind me. So how do I tweet? We're back here to this slide. This is what it looks like when you log into Twitter and you see your news feed and you see where it says what's happening. You just start typing in there whatever it is that you want to tweet, right? So here we go. I'm going to tweet hashtag Star Trek is better than Star Wars, right? And you can see there's that where the tweet button is, and it's dark blue. There's a plus sign next to it. The plus sign is how I would add a photo or upload a video if I wanted to do that. And you can see that little circle that sort of has, it's a gray circle with a little bit of blue. That's letting me know how many characters I have left. I haven't composed a very long tweet, so I have many characters left. You can see I can also, oh, actually, no, the plus sign is how you thread tweets. Sorry, you can do threaded tweets. You can add the photo with the little photo image over there and the GIF is for animated GIFs. You can do a poll. So you can see I'm expanding on my thought. Star Trek is better than Star Wars, right? Star Trek is better than Star Wars. It's 100% true, and everyone knows that it's better. Star Trek is about science, and Star Wars is about magic. You know what's real? Science. You know what's not real? Magic. That's why everyone has come to the conclusion that Star Trek is so much better than Star Wars. Uh-oh, this is too long, right? I have all these opinions, but it's more than 280 characters. And you can see in red, it shows me how many characters I'd have to delete, -24, and it's highlighted it for me. So I'd have to, if I wanted to tweet this, I'd have to figure out how I can take some of that out. So I could take out a sentence, I could abbreviate words, I could completely scrap the tweet because who wants to pick this fight on Twitter? I actually want to pick this fight on Twitter. I pick this fight on Twitter all the time. So I've just gone back to my original thought. Star Trek is better than Star Wars. And I click tweet, and then it's up for everyone who follows me to see that Star Trek is better than Star Wars. Make sense? It's just so quiet when I give this presentation online.
I totally understand. It's weird with no vocal audience, but so far people seem to be good, and they're saying lots of this stuff makes sense. Jeffrey Gold says Star Wars is a high-tech ripoff of 30s Flash Gordon / Buck Rogers serials. Relevant.
Yeah. So your handle is your username. And there was a question about this earlier, so I'll expand on it. Your handle starts with the @ sign, right? So I'm at Asher Huey. I picked my name. I've actually standardized my name across everything. On Facebook, I'm at Asher Huey. On Instagram, I'm at Asher Huey. On pretty much everything, I'm at Asher Huey. Now, I'm not Asher Huey. I'm not at Asher space Huey. I'm not at Asher. I'm at Asher Huey. If you don't put the @ sign, it won't tag me. I won't know that you're talking about me. If you put at Asher space Huey, you've broken it up and you've only tagged at Asher. I've actually gotten to know the kid who has this handle. He's like a college student and gets tweets about me regularly and has offered to give it to me, but I'm like, no, I want my full name. So in terms of picking your handle, picking your username, you can pick whatever you want. You want it to be something that people understand, and you want it to be something that is going to be easy enough to explain to people, and you want it to have meaning. So like AFT, where I work, is at AFT Union, right? We're a union. It's very clear, at AFT Union. Bernie Sanders is at Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden is at Joe Biden. Elizabeth Warren is at E. Warren. So you can pick your name. You can pick Make the Road New York, right? Fantastic organization, is at Make the Road NY, right? You can pick sort of whatever you want as long as somebody else doesn't already have it to represent you or your campaign or your organization. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? In terms of like being funny or clever, that requires you being funny or clever. I was not when I came up with mine. That was very.
Yeah,
it's also my.
We don't have any comments about cleverness. Since did mention that Star Wars is a cheesy cowboy serial, so just kind of creating some controversy in the comments. But otherwise, oh yeah, the Star Wars fights are starting, so don't worry about that. But I think keep on going. This is great.
Star Trek is better than Star Wars. So why are your mentions important? Your mentions are how you have conversations, right? So I tweet at, hey, at McBurn and at L Packard. Did you know that all pickles are trash? Right? Now, if Melissa and Laura are not on Twitter right now, and I've tweeted this at them, they're going to know later, because when they log into Twitter, they're going to get a notification that I have said something to them. If I just said, hey, Melissa and Laura, without adding them, or if I did the wrong names, neither of them would necessarily see that I was trying to say something to them. Does that make sense? I think I'm out of order with the. You can also reply. Replies also appear in your mentions and your notifications. So you can see here, Katie, who's also presenting at this conference, tweeted actually a photo of Brett Banditelli's tweet. So this is like several levels. And she said, that she's doing her presentation at 3 p.m. on Saturday. It's a great presentation. You should all go. And so I hit that reply button. You see that little speech bubble? That's the reply button. So I'm going to reply, and just lets me type to her directly, right? I don't have to add her name because I'm already replying to her. Now, this is a public tweet, right? I'm just replying to her. So kind of like how when you comment on somebody's Facebook post, people can see what your comment is. That's what a reply is like. People can see that this reply is there if they look at her tweet.
Asher, Kendall says that they would also recommend for new organizations or initiatives, choosing a handle that can match across all platforms is super helpful for audience recall. I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
So like I said, at Asher Huey, I'm at Asher Huey on everything so that people can find me. Same thing with the AFT where I work. We're at AFT Union on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We tried Snapchat, didn't work out so well for us. We also at one point tried Pinterest. We couldn't really get it going. It was more effort and less organizing potential than we were able to, organizing results than we were able to get from it. But across all platforms, having the same handle is a really good tip. Thank you.
Aaron also asks if I've created a Twitter account years ago, but now I want to either change my Twitter name or I don't like some of the things I've tweeted in the past. Should I create a new account and delete the old one? I hate to lose some of the people I follow right now, though. I like the idea of having the same handle across all platforms.
So if you go into your settings and you'll just have to play around to get to it. You can actually really easily change your Twitter handle. You just have to make sure that somebody doesn't already have the handle that you want, which happens sometimes. That is actually a very simple thing. Just go up into settings, click around until you find it. In terms of content that you've tweeted in the past that you don't like, you can always go in and delete a tweet if you don't want it up there right now publicly. It's possible and it's probable that it has been saved somewhere. At one point, the Library of Congress said they were saving every tweet that was ever tweeted and cataloging it. I don't know that that project ever actually happened and got off the ground, but search engines and everything that crawls the depths of the internet, it might still be there somewhere. But if you don't want it right up there right now, you can go ahead and remove it. So notifications. So we're here. If you see off to the left where it says notifications, I've got a 3. That is where I see who has been tweeting at me. So you can see I tweeted that Star Trek was better than Star Wars. And I've got people who are totally agreeing with me because it's 100% true. You can see Angela Garcia Combs saying, yes, that is my mom. You can see Andrea saying by a factor of 100. You can see Ethan saying, and more consistent. Everybody agrees with me. I just ignore the people who don't. So retweeting and quote tweeting. And I want to make what I was saying earlier, Melissa and Laura, how they might not be on Twitter as I'm just like tweeting about pickles. I get to see all of these reactions later. I get to tweet my thing and come back 10 minutes later and see everybody who's agreeing with me because they're replying to me or because they're mentioning me, if that makes sense. So you can see these are some things that I tweeted today. If I wanted to retweet myself because my tweet was so good, don't retweet yourself. It's weird. I can press the retweet button. If I press it, it asks me if I want to retweet it or if I want to retweet with comment. We often call those quote tweets. Retweet takes your tweet and shares it to your followers on Twitter exactly as it is. right? It just takes your tweet and puts it in their feed. Kind of like how if you share something on Facebook and you don't say anything about it, people will see that share, right? Or when you share something on Facebook and you can add your own thoughts to it, that's what retweet with comment is. So if I wanted to retweet this, I could just retweet it and everybody would see my tweet again, or I can retweet with comment and it gives me, it looks like this, and it gives me the ability to say, I am right about this. I didn't actually tweet this tweet. I thought it would be too much for my followers.
Asher, we have a few other questions. So this is a little bit on what you were talking about before. Can you merge an old suspended account with your current Twitter? Is the first one.
I don't believe so. I've never tried, and so I've never had to answer that question in a practical way, but I don't believe so.
Yeah, I've also never heard of that. Laura asks, if I start tweeting, who will see the tweet? And I'm guessing that she means like people who don't have a Twitter account, or
So let's just step back a second. Yeah. So the way that you know how on Facebook you become friends with someone. On Twitter,
anyone in the world.
What?
She says she means anyone, like yeah.
So the relationships on Facebook are you become friends with someone. On Twitter, it's that you follow someone, right? So when you create a Twitter account, it's going to say follow these people. It's usually going to recommend celebrities or politicians to you. But you can also, search your email address book or something else, or look up people who are tweeting with the hashtag for, I don't know, a conference that you're at, and you can follow them. When you follow someone, they get a notification that you followed them and they can follow you back. And over time, you build followers. The best way to build your followers is to live tweet something, right? So if you're tweeting a lot about this conference, people at the conference or people who can't attend the conference but want to know what's going on at the conference will start following you. If you start tweeting from events, like you're probably not going to be at a rally anytime soon, but like rallies were great places where if you're live tweeting it, people would follow you to see the updates. But then, just tweeting at people, replying to people regularly, I find that somebody who, like, when I tweet something, people who engage me a lot, I'm more likely to follow them. And if I follow them, that's how I see what they're saying. So the way that people see what you're saying is that they follow you, or they follow somebody who retweeted you, or they're following a hashtag that you used. So if you're using a hashtag that's very popular, I'm going to talk about hashtags in a minute, but if you're using a hashtag that's very popular, people who are following that hashtag are going to start seeing what you shared.
I got a couple other questions here. Aheo asks, what does it mean to get ratioed?
Yeah, so you can see here, technically I'm getting ratioed on this Star Trek is better than Star Wars one. So you can see that I've had 5 people reply to my tweet and 2 people like it. So when people give hot takes or tweet something that's really bad, sometimes you get more people replying saying that's stupid than agreeing, than retweeting it or liking it. And when that happens, that's what a ratio is, and that is embarrassing. And I love to ratio people I dislike and don't like being ratioed myself.
We got one more question. Luciano asks, I'm a representative for a labor union. Should I have a personal account and a work account?
So, I'm not a spokesperson for the AFT, despite being the digital director. No, none of us are spokespeople. I do tweet about work stuff all the time, but I sort of have blended my life and my work. My work is my life. Reasons I'm single. But that's up to you. I mean, I have nothing I have things to tweet about that aren't work, but like I can tweet about my food. I can tweet about my vacations. I can tweet about Star Trek. I do tweet about all those things. I tweet about dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. They're really cool. It's up to you. Do you not want to be mistaken for a spokesperson? I put in my bio, tweets are my own. Does your organization, does your union have policies around that. We've got with our staff union, I'm in management, but with our staff union, we have part of the collective bargaining agreement is a social media policy. So like if some employers have something that says like you will not maintain, or you will maintain separate accounts, or some will say, you know, you won't tweet about X, Y, and Z. If they're really restrictive, talk to your union because you have free speech rights. So, I mean, that's just up to you. I'm not going to say anything that's going to really embarrass my employer. I like to keep it all in one place so that people who are following me for Star Trek see, you know, why collective bargaining is important, and people who follow me for collective bargaining see why Star Trek is important. But that's just me. Does that answer the question? It's not a definite. There's no right answer. It's what you want.
Asher, I was actually going to say that could be relevant depending on political activity. I worked for a nonprofit, and then I also was working on a political campaign for myself. And so I checked with HR and legal just to make sure, like, see what I was allowed to post on my personal Twitter, where I was like kind of also writing about work. So I think that's somewhere where you just want to go right ahead and check with those folks. That's my advice. I don't know.
Yeah. And you got to be careful about like things like that. And like in terms of elections and stuff like it, I mean, you just look at politicians and they have their campaign account and their official account, and they don't mix them, and they're run by different people because there are laws about that. But if you're just like, I mean, I get this question from school teachers sometimes, and I say check what the district policy on it is, but like sometimes they want to do like Twitter chats about professional development, and you know, engaging in that type of stuff. They don't want to have their, you know, handle where they tweet about how much they hate the president sort of overlapping, because sometimes parents will engage in that other, you know, that other conversation. So it really is up to you, but like double check with HR and the legal stuff.
And also Luciano asks, can Labor Board request your Twitter post, just like organizing notes? I'm a little unclear.
So, I mean, there's questions about public sector and private sector. I know that that NLRB years ago, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just telling you my understanding of it. The NLRB did rule that collective bargaining, that social media posts could be considered concerted activity, and the employer could not restrict what you say. In terms of other things that they could request, I mean, I talked to a labor lawyer about it. I've seen a lot of different examples, and we use social media a lot in various organizing campaigns, Facebook ads, Facebook groups, Twitter accounts. I mean, I think it all depends on, you know, what sector you're in and how you're doing it. I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer.
Thank you.
So we're gonna keep moving along. So here's an example of a retweet. So like I said, there is a, if you are like looking at your basically your news feed, you can see this guy, Tim O'Brien. I don't follow him. I don't know who he is, but I'm seeing his tweet because Jill Flipovic, who I do follow, retweeted it. And you can see her name at the top saying retweeted. That's the only way that I'm seeing it. And so he's probably getting and you can see more than 1,700 people have retweeted him. He's getting a larger reach because of all the people who are retweeting him, and he's not, you know, he's probably getting more of a reach than followers that he actually has. So here is an example of a quote tweet. My staffer who passed probation today now decided she can troll me about Star Trek versus Star Wars. with a fake news GIF by quote tweeting me. So she clicked the retweet button, but said with comment and added a fake news GIF. So hashtags. I've mentioned hashtags. Everybody's familiar with hashtags because they're sort of ubiquitous in the world now. But the way that they work is you just place the pound sign before a word or a combination of letters and numbers. And that's how you make a hashtag. You use it for greater visibility. You can search hashtags to find out what people are saying about different things, or to find people who you share interests with. You can make up your own. There's no registering a hashtag. You can just start using one. But if you're going to do one for your conference, for your organization, for your campaign, you should check to make sure that people aren't already using it, or to see if there's not a hashtag that's already being used around this that you can't just join. Anybody can use the hashtag. You don't own it. So, for example, years ago, I organized the DC food trucks. The city was going to ban the food trucks. The food trucks were unorganized. I was like, don't touch my lunch. So I organized the food trucks, founded the DC Food Truck Association, and they were very insistent, because they all use social media to announce where they were serving that day. They were very insistent that they use a hashtag, DCFTA, DC Food Truck Association. They were sharing things with that hashtag, but some Eastern European political thing was also using that hashtag. So when you'd wake up in the morning, there'd be all of these tweets in a different language with the hashtag DCFTA. And then our tweets about food trucks. It was confusing because you couldn't tell what was going on. So we decided to brand the campaign hashtag Save DC Food Trucks. We switched the tag because nobody bothered to check to see if anybody else was using it, and it was confusing. So anybody can use your hashtag. Check before you make it. One of the things I'll say is by just thinking, oh, I want to use this hashtag, I'm going to tweet with it once, don't assume that the rest of the world is going to come to you. Yes, that happened. Oscars So White, that was literally one person who tweeted it once and somehow it took off. But that's like winning the lottery. It's not going to happen to you. Make sure that people know what your hashtag is and why you're using it. So you can see here, I tweeted, here are some unforgettable first contacts from Star Trek. And you can see that Star Trek is blue, and that means it's linked. So you can actually click on Star Trek, and it takes you to the page where everybody who's tweeting about Star Trek, your whole Star Trek community, is there. And you can find people, you can find new articles, you can find cool information about Star Trek. It's all right there. So let's say you're at a conference. Hashtag org20 is the hashtag for this conference. So I searched this earlier today to get this screenshot, and the first thing that I saw was this tweet from the official @Organize20 account. And you can see that they're tagging various speakers. They've got a link. They put in some pictures. They use the hashtag. Now, one of the things that you'll see when you search a hashtag is that the results that they give you are top results, right? That's the default that they're going to show you. Top results are going to be the people who you follow and or who have the highest reach in their tweets. If you switch to latest right next to it, it will show you what people are saying in real time. So you can see that this tweet was 2 hours ago. This tweet at the top was 5 minutes ago. Because I switched to latest, I saw the latest. You can also switch to people, it'll show you the people who are tweeting about it. So some examples of hashtags. Hashtag AFT votes is AFT's hashtag when we talk about politics. Hashtag not me, us. Anybody heard of Bernie? Hashtag questions for Betsy. That's what we use when we have hashtag questions for Betsy. Hashtag feel the burn. I still laugh at this hashtag. I think it's great. Hashtag MAGA. Make America Great Again. The hashtag, the racist slogan of the president, he didn't want to spell out hashtag Make America Great Again because hashtags take up some of your characters, right? And you only have 280 characters. So he shortened it to hashtag MAGA so that he could say more. And of course, hashtag org20. That is the hashtag for the conference.
Asher, we have a few more questions.
Right.
Somebody has asked, how many hashtags can you use? Jimmy has asked. Are they in the count of character numbers in your message?
They are in the count of character numbers. So you want your hashtags, if you're making one, you want it to either be short or very clear. Like when I said hashtag save DC food trucks, that was very clear. The reason we have hashtag questions for Betsy is because we wanted to save, two characters, but we wanted it to be pretty clear. Now, sometimes people use hashtag questions FOR Betsy, and that's a different hashtag. It doesn't appear in the feed. So using the same hashtag, the correct hashtag, is important. I'm sorry, what was the first question, or the first part of that question?
How many can you use?
How many can you use? So you can use as many as you want, but you don't want to do that. I find that when you're using a lot of hashtags, people get overwhelmed. They can't really tell what you're actually talking about. Generally, using 1 to 3, I would say, is what you want to go for. Hashtags aren't required for a tweet, but you do get more reach if you use it. But when you do get up to like a lot of hashtags, you start to look kind of like spam or a bot, and you don't want to be mistaken for a Russian bot trying to influence the election.
All right, a couple more. How can someone brand a hashtag? Barry asks.
So, right, like hashtag save DC food trucks. Part of what we did was we actually, we had the money for this, because they all pitched in, the food trucks, but we bought bus billboards, so people were driving, the buses were driving around. So we did like promotion of it. If you're doing an event, an in-person event, we always print it on all of the, the signs that are there. If your conference hasn't gone paperless yet, put the hashtag on there. Otherwise, email people. If you have an email list or you have a group of people that you work with, say, we're all going to use this hashtag, and get everybody bought into the hashtag so that people start using it. Like I said, it doesn't just people aren't just going to find it or see it. You have to make sure that people know you're using it for this thing, and encourage people to do it with you.
Okay, and the last question here, and also one thing I want to note, so I have another session I'm moderating right after this, so I might have to get going in about 5 minutes.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that this can't keep going. But the question is there ever an issue with people polluting a hashtag deliberately with irrelevant or misleading content? My
next 2 examples are of that. Here we go. So the New York Police Department tweeted, if you have a photo with a member of the NYPD, tweet it at us. Use hashtag MyNYPD. It may be featured on our Facebook page. How do you think this went? Not well. So these were some of the photos. Basically what happened is people saw it, and organizers saw it, and got people to take the action. And what happened was this turned into what the New York Police Department was trying to make a thing about how the police are friendly. They accidentally turned it into a thing about a conversation about police brutality. Now, this didn't happen magically. Now, something like this can take off, but people did see it and sent it around and said, everybody, let's take this action. JP Morgan, this was years ago. This was 2013, but I love this example. It's a Twitter takeover. We're hosting a live Q&A. Use hashtag AskJPM to submit a question. As a young sociopath, how can I succeed in finance? Hashtag AskJPM. These are actual headlines they got from the Twitter fiasco. I love that one. So what happened with both of those examples, because it was large enough, there was a lot of organic stuff that happened, but you can't assume that things are going to, oh, look, I've got that extra character in there. You can't assume that things are going to just take off. Email people, ask them to get involved, and say, let's do this. So ask them, ask them, ask them. It's not magic. So here's an example. Our former executive vice president, she's now the state education commissioner in Minnesota, she wrote this blog post. I wanted the blog post to be seen. So I emailed a bunch of people who I knew were on Twitter. And I said, hey, can you guys do this? And I made it easy for them. I'm like, hey, copy and paste these. If you feel like making them your own, go ahead and change them, right? I emailed this to friends, and pretty quickly, they were all tweeting it. And notice I had them tag at MC Ricker, who is the former, who's the author of the post. And she started getting all of these notifications that all these people were sharing her blog post. She emailed me, she's like, what's going on? This blog post is really taking off. I was like, yeah, isn't it amazing? I looked really good that day. So Betsy DeVos case study. Bears proficiency versus growth, and she didn't know what IDEA was. Her her confirmation was a disaster. So we had to ask ourselves, what do we want? We want to stop her. Who has the power to do that? The Senate, right? So that's who our targets are. What do we want? What do they want? They want re-election. So how do they jeopardize that? We decided to go after them directly. One of the first things we did was we did around her hearings hashtag questions for Betsy, which I brought up before. We didn't just start tweeting from our account hashtag questions for Betsy. We emailed our email list questions. We actually we used a tool called Click to Tweet, where you can actually click on each of these and it opens pre-written in Twitter. Now we encourage people to edit them and make them their own. But if people aren't feeling creative, they can just click it, it opens in Twitter, and they press tweet. And what happened was it trended for hours. People were tagging their own senators. Ultimately, we had more than 1 million petitions. We were partnering with Credo. I'm sad that they no longer exist, or the Credo Action no longer exists. Credo Mobile still does. And we turned questions for Betsy into such a big thing that news wrote about it. We still do it to this day, but it wasn't just that we were doing questions for Betsy. Other people started jumping in for all the other confirmation hearings. U.S. senators started proactively doing questions for this person, questions for this person. And that was all because we asked people to do it, not because we figured they were going to see it on their own. We asked people. So questions. I'm going to escape out of this and go back to this screen because I know that Rachel's going to have to leave in a minute. So I am now looking, as you can see, because I'm still sharing the screen, you can see me looking at you. I'm
just coming back to say hi, bye. And this has been really great. I've learned a lot, even though I've been using Twitter for a while. But yeah, there aren't any questions that haven't been answered before Brian's. So you should be all caught up. Thanks, everybody.
So Brian, the click to tweet stuff, you can actually just go to their site. You can, they have free accounts that you can use. And well, you can just sort of see me going back on that thing, can't you? There are free accounts you can use or professional ones. We have a professional account, but it's pretty self-explanatory when you go to their website. Are there any other questions? And do you want me to go in? Because I have Twitter open right here. I can show you, so you can see here, I'm actually in my notifications tab. So you can see if I scroll down, right? I wasn't looking. We got this person giving me, oh, Kalina, this is my former intern. So she's saying, can you teach me how to use Twitter? I'm going to say only if you admit that all pickles are trash. So you can see these are people tweeting about me, Twitter for beginners. My staffers tweeting if it's available, if the slide deck is available. I'm getting followed by people. Hello, Chris. Are you here watching? You can see I just followed Chris. People saying I have control of my Twitter account. Laura incorrectly disagreeing about pickles. Anything else you want to know? TweetDeck. So I didn't talk about TweetDeck, but TweetDeck is a free tool that is owned by Twitter, and I'll just open a new tab and show you real quick. And I'll show you replies in just a second to the person who asked about replies. So TweetDeck, I just went to tweetdeck.com and it opens, and you can see I have columns set up. So I've got a column set up for everybody that I follow. I hope nothing inappropriate shows up. I've got one for my mentions, so you can see who's liking things, who's doing things. These are my messages, people talking to me in my DMs. You can private message people, be very careful about that. Lanny Davis thought he was sending private messages to Morgan Fairchild. It was super awkward. I've got one for labor and market reporters, right? So I created a list of labor and market reporters, and I can follow them here so I can always see the latest labor union news. I follow a list of labor unions, so I can see what they're tweeting. I've got actual friends. I'm not going to tell you who's on that list. Various lists that I follow. You got Dirty Hippies. I follow the Star Trek list. I follow AFT's mentions. You can always search for hashtag org20, and it's just going to show me in real time everybody who's tweeting it. So Beth tweeted 21 seconds ago. They tweeted here. I'm favoriting these. I hope that's useful. TweetDeck's a great tool. I suggest everyone using it. So Michael wanted to know how replies work. So replies are pretty simple. So you can see here, Melissa tweeted at me, and there's this little, it looks like a speech bubble at the bottom. If I click that, it opens up, and I can, what should I say to Melissa? I can say, love you, mean it. And I'm going to tweet that, right? So I just replied to her. Now, because you can see here, it automatically says replying to her, so I don't have to include the handle because I pressed reply. If I actually click here on her tweet, it's going to open it up. I tweeted that I'm excited to do the session. She said, can you teach me how to use Twitter? And I said, only if you admit that all pickles are trash. She replied with, gross. Pickles are so gross. And you can see I said, love you, mean it. So this is actually cataloging this whole conversation. It's public. It's not a private conversation. That's how replies work. How many hours do I spend on Twitter? Too many. No, the truth is, like, you can go down a rabbit hole. It depends. Go on when you want to go on. Go off when you want to go off. If you're running it for an organization, you got to pay attention to the mentions, because if you're having some sort of meltdown, if you're getting ratioed, it happens to us sometimes. It happens to every organization sometimes. It just all depends on what you're doing. If I'm doing, let's say, a fundraiser for a cause, and I expect about 100 people from an email base of 1,000, a couple hundred of whom I also have on Twitter, what's the advantage of event-specific hashtags? The advantage of event-specific hashtags are that you can always look back at that hashtag and see what people were saying of and from the event. So, like, for AFT, we do hashtags for our conferences, but we don't do hashtags for small meetings unless it's something very specific that we want. If we're doing like a panel and we want to be able to, you can embed the tweets on something. If we're going to write a story about it, we want to be able to search it later. You can always go back to that hashtag and find everything. Anybody who couldn't attend that conference, that meeting, that panel, they'd be able to go and see what was said. They can sort it so that it's in chronological order, so that they can see what happened in real time. That's sort of the advantage of it. It allows people who weren't there to be able to see it, and allows you to find it later. Specifically, when you reply, where does it go? When you reply, it's public. Anybody on Twitter can go and see it. It is largely filtered out of the news feed, though, right? So unless you're following both people, right? So if Melissa, and you can see Melissa and I were replying to each other, this, as I said, is all public here. If Melissa tweets at someone who I don't follow on Twitter, Twitter's not going to put it in my timeline, even though I follow Melissa, because Twitter assumes that because I don't follow them and Melissa's replying directly to them, that it doesn't matter. Now, if she's tagging them differently in the tweet, if she's saying, hey, at, I'm trying to think of someone who I don't follow, hey, at real Donald Trump, stop being an idiot. It will appear in my mentions. But if she's just replying to Trump's tweet, they're going to filter it out. But as I said, it all lives there publicly. You can go see it on her if you go to her profile, or if you go to the tweet that they're replying to, you'll see it there. So everybody, Maria said, follow her, Maria Ordonez, NYC. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will demonstrate following someone for anybody who still has questions about that. So you can see I actually copied her handle. I can search it here, and it brings me to her, or I can actually just after after this, I can paste it, and it's taking me directly to her page, and I followed. So any other questions? We're pretty much out of time, and I know many of you are going to other sessions. Feel free to follow me. Feel free to reach out and ask questions. Twitter is actually probably the quickest way to get a hold of me, at Asher Huey. My mother knows that. She tweets at me when she wants me to call her. I'm seeing no other questions, so I hope that this was helpful for you. And hopefully next year we can be in person. You'll come up to me and be like, I watched your session online last year. I've been at every Organizing 2.0. It's one of my favorite conferences. And I hope that you all live long and prosper. And I don't know how I'm supposed to end this session, so I'm going to leave.